The Tomorrow People, episode 16, titled Superhero. Now that the Tomorrow People have moved because of the new show, The 100, I think they decided, since they knew they were getting moved, they were like, let's make sure we get a really good episode in for this new time slot we have. Because unfortunately now it's not, Arrow and then the Tomorrow People. It is the Tomorrow People and then I guess Starcrossed or something. I don't know. I didn't get to actually see this episode on time. But this is their first episode on the new day, and I think they chose a really good episode to debut. It kind of, if there were ever any problems and they were worried, like, we might lose people because of the switching days, because of course the reason it played after Arrow was because Arrow is like the lead-in show, because of course tons of people watch Arrow, so then, maybe we'll get a lot of people to stick around for the Tomorrow People. But the Tomorrow People on its own is a really good show, and I'm hoping that with its move to Monday, it doesn't lose a ton of viewers because I do like the show, which is, of course, why I do these reviews. And the reason I like this show is because of episodes like this one, where, it's good action. It has, it's funny moments. Of course, in this episode, the main focus is Russell, who is the comedy of the show. So, of course, it has its funny moments. But there were so many great plot points in this episode that are just pretty much going to change the rest of the series, especially the end of it. But of course, I will get to that at the end. But the episode Superhero was definitely a good one. Obviously, it focuses on a superhero who happens to tie in with Russell and his background. And it starts off with this woman. She's teleporting in this house, and she's just beating this guy up. And even though it's titled Superhero, you don't really know that until, or at least you can't really assume that she's the superhero, because of course she could easily be the villain to this superhero. But she's beating this guy up, and then she goes in the closet and she finds this woman who's tied up. And I believe that this opening scene ties into the rest of the episode of why she's in the town or in the city, which is she's working on saving pretty much all of these people who are going to testify in this trial against a gang member. So she beats this guy up, and I assume it was because he kidnapped this woman who was going to testify or something. And throughout the entire episode, her main focus is to save whoever she can who's involved in this trial. And this woman who is known by Russell, he and Steven end up finding her, and then he finds out, like, you aren't the woman I thought you were. And he realizes that this superheroine, she actually, you know is like one in a line of people who actually started with the woman that he used to know. And he's kind of the reason that she became a superhero and passed on this superhero legacy. And it was just a really good episode. Like, that led to the moment. Like, one of my favorite parts in this is when Russell and Steven team up with her to save the judge and his family. And so they go in the house, and then they're just like beating people up left and right. Like, obviously they're humans with guns, but these are people who have telekinesis. They can technically block bullets if they wanted to. And so they're teleporting around, pushing people down and stuff, and they're just beating them up, and they save this judge and his family. And I just thought that was a really good episode, because we don't get that type of thing in this show, because although these people have superpowers, no one's really brought up the concept of becoming a superhero until this actual episode. So it was really cool to see that, where someone wasn't just, using their powers to like get money or, things like that, or to survive. They were using it to help other people survive, and that actually led to, another great plot point in this episode, which is Steven kind of getting a lot closer to his partner, and we find out her backstory, which I thought was really interesting, where her family is murdered in front of her, and the only reason she survives is because she's hidden under the bed. And this was, of course, before her powers actually developed. But that's why she decided to work for Ultra, because at that point, when her brother tried to save her family and he couldn't, and he was killed, and so was her mother, and I would assume her father. At that point, she decided, I'm gonna do everything I can to help everyone, and not just the human race. And she thought Ultra is helping humanity, so they're good people. And then in this episode, she realizes, like, we're going after a superhero because they have powers, and we're trying not only to take their powers, we're trying to just flat out kill them. And if we can't get behind that, what type of organization are we if we can't even get behind someone who's flat out helping other people? And I thought it was a great moment for her character. We got some good development, and we saw why she's like the hard ass out of all the up and coming Ultra members. and it's because she wants to help so many people, and she wants to, be the one on top. And obviously, Steven being Jedekiah's nephew, she had a lot of competition, and she wanted to prove herself. But I'm curious to see how things go out, go throughout the rest of this season, and how Steven and her kind of, whether or not they even actually have a relationship, because they could just hook up. But I don't know. And one thing that made me really curious was the fact that during the scene where we get her backstory and stuff, the start of that scene is her basically, busting Steven and saying, like, this entire time you weren't trying to stop the breakout, you were trying to help her. And I feel like at that point in the episode, she was very focused on that one mission. But I think in a couple of episodes, she'll probably end up saying, like, maybe he wasn't just helping that superhero, he was he's been helping, in all of these past missions. Because I thought, she found the thing, and that was going to be it. Like, this was going to be the episode where she basically busts him, like, I know you're working with the Tomorrow people and stuff like that. But, she, at that point in time, she wasn't really thinking, like, maybe it was more than one person. She thought Steven helped the superhero escape because it's a superhero. And, at that point, like I said, she was struggling with the fact that Ultra wants to kill this person who's saving a ton of people. And I thought she was gonna, come out at him and say, like, you've been working with the Tomorrow people, and that's why they got away this time and that time, and that's why every time we have a mission, they always seem to be one step ahead of us, and it's because you've been helping them. But it unfortunately it didn't have that, or fortunately, I guess it depends how you really look at it. But I was kind of hoping for that really big confrontation where he had to basically convince her not to be evil and not to tell Jedekiah. But I think he might be able to get her on the side of the Tomorrow people, because now she has realized that Ultra doesn't care about humanity, it cares about only humans. And even though the Tomorrow people technically aren't Homo sapiens, they are still human in a sense. But I'm excited to see how that goes. But the biggest plot point that came out of this episode was without a doubt the ending, which was Steven finding his father. And not only that, but Jedekiah is like right behind him. And Jedekiah even had his own little storyline, which was really the side story of this episode, was Jedekiah and his girlfriend kind of being together, and she wants to get some information out of him. And I knew automatically that she was going to get busted, and I didn't know what exactly was going to happen, but I knew she'd be busted. But one of the big things that came out of that, aside from the ending, is the fact that she's having a baby. She is pregnant, and although we wouldn't actually see this kid grow up or anything, because we'd have to wait the 9 months and then like the 13 years or so for it to develop powers, the main point is she is pregnant by Jedekiah. And for one, that's a huge problem for him because he works at Ultra in general, and then two, of course, she's supposed to be dead, so it's an even bigger issue that she's pregnant when she's creating a new life when she's not even supposed to have one now. But I love that point when he found out, and just his expression and his shock. And then that little bit of information led to Steven actually finding his father, which I didn't expect. I of course thought he's gonna get really close to the door or something, and then Jedekiah would find him right there and then stop him and say, like, how'd you get here and stuff. But I'm glad they did go through with it, and they didn't kind of tease us with it, like he almost found him. It was like, no, he found his father, and Jedekiah is right there. So I can't wait to see the next episode. I don't know how it's gonna play out, but the most obvious thing is Jedekiah can't really deny the fact that Steven's with the Tomorrow people, because like he even said it himself, like, I can only assume that you're here because and of course I can't remember his girlfriend's name, but she got some information, she told the Tomorrow people, and now here you are in front of me. So I'm excited to see just how every little plot point plays out. But without a doubt, the ending is the most exciting part. But overall, the episode was good. The character that was introduced, Russell's connection to the past was really good. The action, of course, was amazing, especially the scene where they are fighting in the house. That was probably my favorite. That was definitely my favorite scene. Not just because of the action, but because, it was like a weird sort of team up that we don't get in this show. So that was a cool change of pace where they're just like, we're not fighting to survive. we're fighting and just beating these people up to save somebody else. So I thought it was pretty cool. But ultimately, loved the episode. Great plot points. Jedediah's having a kid. Steven and his partner are going to be getting together. Probably not in the 90 minutes that she said, but they'll be getting together at some point in this series, and then probably breaking up, I'm sure. And Steven found his father, so we'll have to see how that plays out for the rest of the series. But hopefully, with the move, they don't lose too many viewers. So if you like this show, definitely keep watching it and try to try to watch it on Mondays. Like I know I'm gonna try to, but I definitely won't be able to. But definitely give it a shot if you haven't. And I don't know why you'd be watching this if you haven't seen the show, but if you watch it, definitely keep supporting it because I think it's a good show and I think it's worth having 2 seasons or more of this show because it's really good and they have some good writing, good action, good comedy. So definitely keep watching. But comment below, let me know what you guys thought of this episode in particular, favorite parts, least favorite parts, and definitely tell me how do you guys think things are gonna go now that Steven's found his father and Jedediah found him finding his father. So comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.